You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good afternoon. Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. From Phoenix, Arizona, I'm your host, Matt Holloway. Right now, we are getting into it, folks. We need to discuss Schumer Shutdown. All of that here on the Holiday Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. And oh, wait a second. Turkey. Remember Turkey? Apparently they've invaded Syria. Gee, nobody's covering that today. Oh man, this is going to be an interesting hour. Stick around.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HoloNet has been approved. Please stand by.
My fellow citizens, recent events have imposed upon the patriotic people of this country a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any since the Civil War.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
We are called as a people to give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Lanterns Media Network proudly brings to you the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. That's redundant. I'm just so used to saying that afterward. Jeez. Anyhow, it is a bone-chilling 60 degrees in Arizona. We're having a little bit of a cold snap this week. I know the rest of the country is saying, get over it. But hey, we're used to it being warm. I mean, hey, it happens. So, coming in to this HoloNet podcast on Sunday, January the 21st in the year of our Lord 2018, it is day 2. Day 2 of the SchumerShutdown. That's right. We have to look around, and we have to see that all non-essential pieces of the federal government have been shut down. Can you bear it? National parks not open. Your tax dollars are not being burned away at a breakneck pace. What do we do? Now, I'm just going to cut that real fast. There is a sad part to this. There really is a sad part to this, and it hits close to home. It hits close to home for me and for many people who have friends and family members who are in the employ of the federal government, that a lot of good, honest, hardworking people are not going to get paychecks this week, and that's jacked up. So we need to pay attention to this. We need to talk about it. We need to point to the absolute hypocrisy of Chuck Schumer and the DNC and the abject negotiation failure of the Trump administration here. Now, I want to put this into context because I spoke incorrectly on Twitter. Say it ain't so. I actually misspoke with my 240 characters. 280. I'm so embarrassed. Yeah, but it happens. Now, earlier in the week, I actually posted up that, in 2013, there was a government shutdown. And I stated that the DNC was running the show at the time, that the DNC had the House, and the DNC had the Senate, and the DNC had the presidency. Not accurate. The GOP had the House in 2013. I'm going to take my medicine on that one. But that doesn't change the fact that in 2013, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats all decried the governmental shutdown tactic that was mainly promulgated by Ted Cruz and the conservative members of the Senate, a Democrat-controlled Senate, mind you, decided to shut down the government in order to filibuster, if you will, funding of Obamacare and the mandate there. And they absolutely tore it apart. And in the end, the nuclear option was employed in order to break the filibuster and move on. Now that the shoe is on the other foot, just as Republicans predicted it would be, it is only right that the Democrats shut down the government, according to Chuck Schumer, despite the fact that he himself stated back in 2013 that he would never utilize a shutdown for this purpose. We'll go to some quick audio here. There's an excellent compilation of this that was put together by The Blaze that I think you should check out. If you haven't had the chance to check it out, it's on The Blaze's Facebook page, and I'm just going to jump cut here straight to what Chuck Schumer said. Hang on just a second. This is some really stunning audio that just shows the reversal. Really helps when I unmute the tab, by the way. Really helps when I do that.
Funds the government must also include a fix for DACA.
This is playing with fire. We could do the same thing on immigration. We believe strongly in immigration reform. We could say we're shutting down the government. We're not going to raise the debt ceiling until you pass immigration reform. It would be governmental chaos.
Before January 19th, in order to avert that partial government.
So there's Chuck Schumer for you saying that they could shut down the government because of immigration, but it would be governmental chaos. It would be irresponsible. Well, Chucky, I hate to direct you back to exactly what you said in 2013 when you were on the other side here, but that's exactly what you've done. How often in life do you get to point somebody directly back to when they said something antithetical to their current standing? When they were on the exact opposite side of an argument, and you know, when you're dealing with most people in real life, that would kind of force them to do a little bit of self-examination. That would force them to reconsider a little bit, right? But not in politics. That's business as usual. That makes absolutely no difference, zero impact on the DNC's argument. Now, also in 2013, it was an absolute foregone conclusion that the blame, if you will, for the government shutdown lie with the GOP at that time. Now the situation is almost precisely reversed, the only difference being that there is a GOP House, okay? But the government shutdown has been enacted by the minority party in the Senate, just as it was in 2013. But this time, it is still the GOP's fault? How does that make even the slightest bit of sense? How can you accomplish the psychological gymnastics necessary to make that work in your mind? That is absolutely a case of doublethink, where you can simultaneously believe two completely contradictory points because it furthers your argument. That's Orwellian crap, man. That is 1984 style. And it really is a bit on the disturbing side. Right now I look really impressive on the video because I'm like underlit by my iPad because I'm looking at my iPad in my show notes. Sorry, that's a case of the millennial having a short attention span. Ooh, shiny, saw squirrel. But I want to get to this point, and then we got to take a quick break. But the president has come out and urged Republicans to launch nuclear option on the federal budget stalemate. This is on The Blaze 53 minutes ago by Terry Webster. President Trump is asking Republicans to deploy a so-called nuclear option to end the federal budget stalemate. Trump tweeted, great to see how hard Republicans are fighting for our military and safety on the border. The Dems just want illegal immigrants to pour into our nation unchecked. If stalemate continues, Republicans should go to 51% nuclear option and vote on real long-term budget, no CRs, meaning no continuing resolutions. And you know, I think that I am inclined to agree with President Trump on this one, but there are many hardliners in the Senate, many conservative traditionalists, who actually don't want to engage the nuclear option because they don't believe in it. Now, it's a case of, would the enemy, I don't want to call them the enemy, would the opposition, because remember, respectful opposition, God, it's so easy to fall in that trap and think of people as your enemy or your friend. Would the opposition be so hesitant in this situation to use the nuclear option? And the answer is no. They did so with aplomb. So as far as I'm concerned, I think I have to pull a good old Emperor Palpatine here on the nuclear option.
Do it.
That's right.
Do it.
And I think there's a response that's going to come from the DNC on this.
I'm counting on it!
That's right. I think that the DNC doesn't just hope that the Republicans will enact the nuclear option on this. I believe they're counting on it for their 2018 election strategy. Think it over. The problem with the Republican Party and the problem with conservatives is we are too reactionary. We've been responding to every move that the Democrats have made for the last century. We need to get ahead, and we need to watch the long game here. Who does the government shutdown hurt? It hurts two groups of people. One, it hurts the people who get a check from the government. It really sucks for them. And you know what? The Democratic Party for making them suffer. Because they're trying to achieve a policy goal, which is an executive initiative, which was refused by Congress multiple times. Then DACA was an executive initiative. They're trying to enshrine it through legislation, despite the fact that legislation for DACA continually fails because the people don't want it. They're trying to force an executive move to be enshrined by legislation through a process that it has nothing to do with, through a budgetary process. And they're doing it on the backs of the American people who depend on a government check, who work in a government role, or who depend on the services that are not currently available. Because remember, essential services are still available, but non-essential services are not. That's important to remember. Ditch this fear-mongering crap, all right? But I believe their 2018 campaign to take control of the House and Senate is dependent upon the nuclear option. So while my first impression is...
do it.
At the end of the day, I think that the best thing the Republican Party can do is sit back and take a sip of coffee. Maybe tea if you prefer tea. And just let it happen. Because at the end of the day, we wanted to cut the budget. Government shutdown does that fairly effectively. And the other group of people that the shutdown hurts, aside from the people getting a government check, is the minority party. The longer this stretches on, the worse it gets for the Democrats. All right, you're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. We started the show a little bit late today. I do apologize for that, but we're going to steamroll right on ahead. If you want to follow us, we're on Facebook Live right now, so that's facebook.com/HoloNet. You can tweet at the HoloNet. Also find us on theholonet.com and holonet.lanterns.buzz. We'll be right back. I see people coming together not for divisiveness of party or for dichotomy of thought, but for unity in principle. In the principles that founded our nation, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Today, ladies and gentlemen, those principles are under the sternest attack that we have seen in many generations. It has become a crime in this nation nearly to express a difference in opinion from what is held by your party to be doctrine, from what is purported by the media to be truth. An opportunity to reach out to our fellow Americans regardless of their creed and regardless of their political inclinations, and unite as Americans, not as Republicans or as Democrats, as liberals or conservatives, but to unite around the principles that have guided this nation so well. covered a lot of stories. But the story that remains untold is the story of America in the 21st century. When we choose to turn back the tide against progressive socialism. When we choose to embrace the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights. When we remember what it is to be Americans. And that principle will not die as long as there's one man, one woman, one child who looks defiantly into the night and says, I am free.
You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
We're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. Now, we spoke a little bit about the Schumer shutdown, and honestly, I think I laid out my case pretty straightforward there. Cut clean and dry. The shutdown right now hurts two groups of people. People who depend on the government for a check because they work for the government, which for them, really just absolutely the Democrats for making them go through this. It's not right that you take everybody's paychecks hostage and that you put people out of work just to further your political agenda. It's crap politics, and it's got to stop. But at the same time, while every instinct in me is going, do it, on the shutdown of the government, on the execution of the nuclear option, because it feels good to watch the other team get slapped with what you got hit with, I actually think that it would only hurt the cause at this point. Because right now, the shutdown going on and Republicans sticking to their guns only hurts the Democrats. And it is such a clutch move for the Democrats going into 2018 to be able to say, well, do you want the Republicans to be fascists who use the nuclear option to trample the rights of the minority in the United States? And of course they use the nuclear option to pass their racist, bigoted, 1%er, insert your leftist invective here. Why would we give them that ammunition? Let them twist a bit. If anything, though, a bill has to be put through that funds our military, because right now anybody under sergeant, I think, is not getting paid. We need to fund the military in its entirety. And we need to provide for the people who are not being paid right now. So fund that much. But aside from that, don't go nuclear. Let the DNC sleep in the bed they made. And see if the dreamers will save them. Now, real quick, we're going to take a hard pivot. We're going to go to news on a global level. We're going to talk about Turkey. That's right, Turkey. Remember Turkey? President Recep Tayyip Erdogan? According to The Guardian, Recep Tayyip Erdogan's risky gamble could quickly turn sour. Turkish president defies Russia, the U.S., and Bashar al-Assad with assault on Kurds in Syria. Recep Tayyip Erdogan's Kurdish vendetta has taken a new dramatic twist in a cross-border ground assault on the Afrin enclave in northwest Syria. Defying Russia, the U.S., and Bashar al-Assad's regime, Turkey's headstrong president is betting on a decisive victory over Syrian Kurd forces, but his risky gamble could quickly turn sour. The initial incursion by Turkish troops and their Free Syrian Army allies on Sunday, preceded by days of airstrikes and artillery shelling, appeared tentative and limited in scope. The Syrian Kurd People's Protection Units, or YPG militia, said to number 10,000 fighters in Afrin, is not giving an inch. They are dug in and they're defending the Rojava, the fabled Kurdish homeland. So, while everybody here stateside is so wrapped up in our own contrived government shutdown, which is 100% purely built, manufactured, and designed by the Democratic National Committee to provide them with an infallibly perfect platform to launch a 2018 bid to retake Congress, Turkey has invaded Syria. Now, if you think back to our previous conversations on the ever-growing tug-of-war in Turkey, I outlined this as a possible catalyst to greater involvement in Syria that could drag in world powers. We're talking Russia. We're talking us. We're talking Europe. We're talking China. Could all now be dragged into this conflict because President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has one gigantic... I'm trying to come up with a non-crude way to say this. He has a huge case of bloodlust, really, there's no other way to say it, for the Kurdish people. He has a vendetta against the Kurds. He wants to wipe them off the face of the earth. And he's willing to run over international boundaries to do it. And to invade Syria, which is the most dangerous flashpoint in global politics today, aside from maybe Taiwan and North Korea. Think of it. Our forces, along with Russian forces, along with Turkish forces, somebody's going to blink. Somebody's going to zig when they should zag. It's not going to end well. The Guardian's not the only one covering it either. Breitbart, and their national security section, says Worldview, Turkey begins invasion of Syria while China lies about indisputable sovereignty. Yeah, and, nice little map here of precisely where Turkey is invading in the Afrin enclave. They say Turkey's military operations against Syria's Afrin region were described yesterday as Turkish warplanes conducting thousands of airstrikes at Kurdish YPG's targets in Afrin. Turkey-backed Free Syrian Army militias are reportedly moving into Afrin to conduct the ground war. Russia says it has moved 300 or so troops out of Afrin to safety. Russia, which controls the airspace over Afrin, is not stopping the airstrikes, indicating that Russia is giving tacit approval to Turkey's operation. How insane is this? Turkey and Russia now seeming to act in collusion against the Kurdish people. At this point, because we are so hyper-focused on the budget battle in D.C., we are blind to everything else that is moving in the world, and other powers in the world are going to seek advantage. Hell, while we're not paying attention, coalition politics in Germany are literally reshaping the electoral map and causing Angela Merkel just a world of hurt. I mean, go to your global coverage, and there are just a hotbed of stories about the here we go, about the new coalition in New York Times. Sorry about that, took a second to load. And both parliaments of Germany and France are set to commemorate the 55 years of the LC Treaty to increase cooperation between France and Germany. Germany, which is now gaining its own experience in so-called ethnic no-go zones, as the Alternative for Deutschland Party, AfD Party, consolidates its position within the ruling coalition of Germany. So we're seeing a wind change in German politics. Closer lineup with France, as Britain still stumbles and bumbles its way through Brexit, and it looks day by day as if conservatives in the UK will lose control in the next parliamentary election. The world's in trouble, kids. And we are not paying attention to our surroundings. And in absence of real American bandwidth, perhaps, is the best way to put it. Attentiveness, concern. The world is going to hell in a handbag. It's a tough day right now for the Kurdish people. Because, once again, in a historic repeat, it appears everyone is too busy to help them. And we're too busy with our own affairs to be of any help to anybody. So really, the government shutdown, not the biggest problem this week. Watch Syria. Take a quick break. And when we come back, there's a big myth going around, and I think a lot of people have fallen for it, that government spending somehow stimulates our economy. We're going to tackle that with some information from Forbes and Heritage.org and some really cringy audio from Nancy Pelosi. When we return, you're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
America molested by Ronald McDonald. It's true. Has it happened to you? 'Cause it starts with a dime and it ends with a dollar. Makes me wanna get up and to holler. Hey, what has it happened to you? 'Cause it's happening all around and no one's making a sound about it. We gotta take back America. 1, 2, 3. Take back America, you and me. Take back America or we're all screwed.
Here at the New Conservative Resistance, we understand if you don't get enough of the HoloNet. So, we've made it easy for you. To find the latest on Matt Holloway, whether it be blogs or radio podcasts, go to theholonet.com or holonet.lanterns.buzz.
I think we could be in for a whole lot of trouble. Hey! What has happened to you? Because it's happening all around and no one's making a sound. No one's making a sound.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Just in. Apparently something important just happened in football, and nope, still don't care, because... Yeah, I know. Going to the BBC. BBC again confirms Turkish ground troops have entered the Afrin enclave, crossing into Syria as part of a major offensive to push out the Kurdish militia, which Turkey regard as terrorists. So, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has vowed to crush the YPG very quickly, but the U.S. is urging Turkish restraint in order to avoid civilian casualties. Now, the military operation happened on Saturday. Olive Branch. Hang on a second. Holy crap. Did they actually just name a military operation Olive Branch? Olive Branch? That's the damn opposite of... Wait. Olive Branch. You extend an olive branch to make peace. There's got to be a translation thing here. That's got to be lost in translation. Aimed at moving Kurdish forces from Afrin. Plans for the operation were believed to have been accelerated when the U.S. announced earlier this month it would help an anti-IS alliance formed of these Kurds and ethnic Arab militias to build a new border security force to prevent the return of jihadists. So yes, it looks like we are at full-blown 1980s tin pot dictator style proxy warfare in the Middle East. Uh-huh. You have the Turks, backed by the Russians, tacitly, who are taking out the Kurds, who are propped up by who? Oh yeah, us. Come on, guys, Chuck Schumer is not that dang important. At the end of the day, on global terms, the budget struggles in the United States... It doesn't matter! Yeah. This is getting beyond ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, I want to pivot to learning a little bit about governmental spending. Because there seems to be this rumor going around that government spending stimulates the economy. Now, I know. You're saying, Matt, you know that Reaganomics said government spending, trickle-down economics, all that fun stuff. But that's not the kind of spending we're talking about here. We're not talking about sending out contracts that create jobs for military hardware. No, this is Representative, thank God no longer Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, Democrat Minority Leader, about the government shutdown, saying on live television, quote, "Nothing brings more money to the Treasury than government spending." You can't make this crap up. I'm going to go to that cut right now.
So I think on the cap thing, we just have to get in a room and make those decisions. The challenge that I see is that there are those, that has been reported to me, that there are those on the Republican side who have some unease in increasing the domestic budget because they know that they already had a big increase in the deficit in the tax bill and are reluctant to add any more investments for fear that it would increase the deficit. However, these investments in research and development, in education, in infrastructure really bring money to the revenue to the Treasury. So they help decrease the deficit. In fact, I think most economists will tell you that nothing brings more money to the Treasury than the investments in education, early childhood, K through 12, higher education, postgrad, lifetime learning for our workers. So in that spirit of saying you want more in defense and we're respectful of that. We need more in domestic. Hopefully you'll be respectful of that. I think that we can come to terms on that. And
so nothing increases the Treasury like government spending. Everyone knows that government spending comes out of the Treasury. Come on, man. Come on. Now, if I have $100 in my bank account and I spend money, that is not putting money into my pocket. Long-term investments in education are not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. But the concept that puts money directly back into the Treasury is completely laughable. What the federal government's job is to create the environment where businesses and individuals can thrive. Not to make investments and choose winners and losers and guide the process. No. The government needs to get out of the way. There are a couple of excellent articles on this that I'd like to refer you to check out. One of them is on heritage.org. It's an excellent write-up by Brian Rydell, Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and this is from 2010. It'll take you about 17 minutes to get through it, and it goes back to the Obama stimulus, the $787 billion stimulus bill back in 2010, and it points to the failures, the repeated failures that this kind of thinking has wrought. And he says, indeed, President Obama's stimulus bill failed by its own standards. In a January 2009 report, White House economists predicted that the stimulus bill would create, not merely save, 3.3 million net jobs by 2010. Since then, 3.5 million more net jobs have been lost, pushing the unemployment rate over 10%. Side note, boy, Trump administration's really done good on bringing that down, haven't they? Back to the reading. The fact that the government failed to spend its way to prosperity is not an isolated incident, he goes on to list. During the 1930s, New Deal lawmakers doubled federal spending, yet unemployment remained above 20% until World War II. Japan responded to a 1990 recession by passing 10 stimulus spending bills over 8 years, building the largest national debt in the industrialized world at the time, yet its economy remained stagnant. In 2001, President Bush responded to a recession by injecting tax rebates into the economy. The economy did not respond until 2 years later when tax rate reductions were implemented. So actual tax rate reductions were implemented. In 2008, President Bush tried to head off the current recession with another round of tax rebates. The recession continued to worsen. Now, the most recent $787 billion stimulus bill was intended to keep the unemployment rate from exceeding 8%. In November, it topped 10%. Now, the converse of this argument, okay? The reversal of this argument is President Trump and the Republican Congress instituted true tax reform. What has been the effect of the president's tax reform? Let's ask Google. Effects of the 2018 tax reform. Let's see. Let's pull this up. The effects of the 2018 tax reform on individuals. From CPA Practice Advisors out there. Tax brackets 2018, how Trump's tax plan will affect you. This is crap. This is nothing. This is, just showing what the direct impact will be on the individual or on your business or when the tax laws go into effect. Let's take a look at the Dow Jones results. Let's see. Where's the Dow today? What's the Dow Jones doing right now? Ooh, 26,071, up 53.91 points, and this was as of close of the market on Friday at 4:59 p.m. EST. 26,000. Gee, I'm pretty sure that's an all-time high. Pretty dang sure that's an all-time high. CNBC reports the Dow's 31% gain during Trump's first year is the best since FDR. Wow. So, we actually enact real tax reform. The economy springs to life. We spend in stimulus. The economy takes a crap. But we have Nancy Pelosi, who has the stones to get up in front of Congress and say that nothing adds to the Treasury like stimulus spending? Are you completely outside of your mind? Have you lost all contact with reality? There's another great write-up on this that you can check out. Hang on just a second. In case you're not a fan of heritage.org, because they do have a conservative slant, there's an excellent write-up in Forbes. And that's actually on Forbes. It's by Peter Ferrara, who's a contributor to Forbes. And he explains the situation just as well. The absolutely abysmal effect that stimulus spending has on unemployment and has on the stock market. The only antidote to grow the economy, to enrich the American people, and to create a better, more stable government is to cut spending and decrease taxes. We're halfway there now. We've decreased taxes. Now we need to cut spending. And a government shutdown presents the perfect opportunity. So it's time to take what Chuck Schumer and the DNC and congressional Democrats created and turn it to the advantage of the American people. Use this opportunity to force the kind of spending cuts that this country needs to survive and thrive. And take one final break, and when we come back, we're going to review what we need to look forward to in the next week. And, oh yeah, there was a little march today. What was it? The March for Women took place in Phoenix today. Yeah, we're going to have to address that. Cities all around the country repeated the same march that took place in 2017. They didn't know what they wanted then. They still don't know what they want now. They just know that if you are a hetero white male, they don't like you very much. And, boy, Trump is evil, isn't he? All that when we come back from this quick break. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
We're back. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. Now, taking a look at the Twitter trending today. Oh, man, what's trending on Twitter? Is it? It's football again. Oh, man. Yup, it's about the New England Patriots versus the Jaguars game. That just wrapped up, I think. The SAG Awards apparently are very big on Twitter right now. And, it was National Hug Day. Is there anything else I should possibly give a crap about Twitter? Let me see. Stupid things couples fight about. Apparently that's a big deal. And this is absolutely the most vapid garbage I've ever seen, which shows me that the focus and the attention span of the American people has been so badly co-opted that people don't know what to give a crap about anymore. People don't know that they should care that we've turned our back on our Kurdish allies and that we're allowing Turkey to run rampant, backed by the Russians, because it's politically inconvenient right now for us to do anything about it. People don't know they're supposed to care. That probably the heaviest tinderbox in the world right now, and the biggest potential strike point for World War III is in Syria right now, and the flames are being stoked. They don't know they should care because the mainstream media is too busy showing women with their pink hats and holding up signs and just trying to express to the world how evil Donald Trump and the patriarchy are, and how we have to stand up to them by holding up signs and by walking down the street. Yeah, apparently this is a thing. Apparently it was a rather big deal. Some 20,000 people were expected in Arizona, in Phoenix. Don't know if they actually wound up with that number. I'll pull that up right now off of azcentral.com. 2018 Women's March, at least 20,000 rallied in Arizona. Now, a lot of the people who were there were fighting against a pattern of invisibility for Indigenous women and women of color. One particularly large issue was justice for L'Oreal, which is not referring to a makeup brand, but is referring to a woman who was shot in Winslow, Arizona by police after ostensibly brandishing a pair of scissors at the police officer during a robbery in progress. Yeah, so point of order, don't brandish a bladed instrument at a police officer. That tends to cause you a problem. In her case, 5 problems in the 10 ring. God rest the woman's soul. It's unfortunate that she passed. But there has to be a certain amount of individual responsibility at play when you brandish a bladed instrument at a police officer. It should be noted that the county attorney, found the officer had committed no wrongdoing and no charges were pressed. So that is something to note here. So thousands marched in Phoenix. People came down from Las Vegas for a variety of subjects, but all of the subjects, indeed, Handmaid's Tale sighting at the Phoenix March. Ooh, marchers dressed up as women from Handmaid's Tale. Here we go. Native Americans from the Colorado River Indian tribes near Parker drove out 2.5 hours. There was a march for black women. And, the police officers took great pains, apparently, to separate the women who were protesting from the Trump backers. 2 Donald Trump supporters holding signs and flags were standing along the route as the women's 2018 participants passed, shouting, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Donald Trump has got to go," near the Arizona Capitol. At one point, police intervened to keep the marchers away from pro-Trump people. So, that happened today. Can anybody really tell me how President Trump and how congressional Republicans are oppressing women in this country today? Apparently there's a big controversy going on right now that President Trump apparently had an affair with a pornographic actress. And apparently that is oppressive to women. The way these people speak, the way the women who are marching and the left speak, you would think we had President Weinstein in office. But no, it's President Trump. So stay tuned for news of the Women's March. Maybe you can do better than me. Maybe you can actually figure out why the hell they were marching. I didn't see a good reason in 2017. I don't see a good reason in 2018. Ladies, we live in a free country. no one is oppressing you. If you want to see oppression, check out Iran sometime. On that note, God bless you. God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway. Good night.